Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's session. Is it wet and miserable where you are? Because it certainly is here, and my feet are freezing. It is definitely getting towards sock weather, as in thick woolly socks, multiple layers of. Anyway, tonight I have a great session for you on data-driven, data-drenched, or maybe it's data drought. Really does depend where you are. I'm going to bring that up on the screen straight away, and we will see what we've got to share. There we go. I'm working on a slightly different system today, so if my eyes are everywhere and I'm looking somewhere else, I do apologise in advance. So, like I said, data-driven, data-drenched, or is there a data drought? One of those things, a data drought. I like data. I love working with data, but I know that it scares some people, and I also know that sometimes trying to get hold of data in schools is a bit like hunting for a needle in a haystack. We seem to have a lot of data, but it's not particularly helpful data. It's not really what we need, and it's not useful for our purposes. So tonight's session is kind of looking at some of those things, finding a bit of balance in the SENCO role. Okay, just to set the scene for you there, let's look at both. Yeah, we've got both of them going up. Data is basically the currency of education. It doesn't matter how you want to look at that. We have got external bodies ask us for data all of the time. Ofsted say that they won't ask you for data, and they're not asking you to show them spreadsheets. But they are looking at it at the end of the day. They are going to ask you to explain progress. We've still got progress tables and performance 8 and all of that. And we've got the buckets of doom, I wanted to say then. We've got the buckets where we put the qualifications. We've got Key Stage 2 results. We've got phonics results and all the rest of it. Data drives education, whether we like it or not. And it does, for us, in our SENCO role, help us a lot of the time to understand and support those students. So are they actually working at the right levels? Are they on track to achieve what they should be doing? Is the intervention we're putting in place actually having an impact? And that doesn't necessarily mean academic impact. We could be looking at a piece of data to do with attendance or well-being, or how long they stay in a lesson before they have to come out of it. So it is a currency. It's probably more abundant than pound notes in schools, because we haven't got any of those. Not that we've used pound notes since the 1980s. Let's think about it. When did the pound note go out? 1984, 1985. So pound coins since then. But we haven't got any pound coins in school either. There's no loose change. We use that data for pretty much everything. So it helps us to make evidence-based decisions, and it can help us to make the right decisions, so we're not choosing the wrong thing sometimes. So the question isn't about whether we use the data, but it's how to use what we've got effectively. And is it genuinely driving our decision making, or are we simply kind of just drowning in spreadsheets and numbers and tick boxes without them actually having any particular purpose to go with? So let's have a look at the balance between the two of them. And if you're somebody who hates data, I'm going to try and instill a love of data in you by the end of today's session. I will just say ahead, by the way, because I've had to switch to a different screen and I'm not using my laptop, if you ask me any questions, I can't see them. So hopefully Gavin will come running through the door at some point with, "You've got a question," and tell me what the question is. We'll see. Okay, the role of data in SEND then. It does have multiple purposes. It has multiple functions within our roles. So most importantly, we need to use it strategically to help us make changes. So first use of data is to identify needs. So if I've got a student and I'm looking at reading age data, I might be looking for some patterns and some trends that might reveal an underlying difficulty. And it's very common for children to almost be on track with their peers, and then it suddenly starts drifting off by 1 or 2 points, and then perhaps by 5 or 6 points, so that by the time we get 3-4 years down the line, we've got this gap that's widened up. And it could be because that language has developed, and I'm thinking of reading data here specifically, that they haven't continued to develop their language knowledge alongside their peers. So we can use it for progress tracking. So, again, if we're looking at age-related expectations, I always think of the good old red book at this point, that when you have a child and the health visitor gives you that lovely red book when you have your first child, and by the second one you're thinking, I don't even know where I put the first one, and you're supposed to take it to every appointment with you, and you do so diligently for the first 5 or 6 appointments, and then nobody asks you for it. And then the 7th appointment where you decide, I'm not going to bother taking it because nobody ever asks me for it, somebody asks you for it. Yeah, data feels like that sometimes. But age-related expectations, if you think about that red book, there's those wonderful tracks in there that say these are the trajectories. So if your child was born at this weight, by the time they are 6 months old, they should be between when I think age-related expectation. It's not, you must be exactly 6 years and 3 months because you're 6 years and 3 months old today. It's, well, actually, you should be anywhere between 5 years, 7 months and 6 years, 7 months. We've got a bit of a range either side. And that's perfectly normal. That's perfectly acceptable. So that to me is an age-related expectation. And if we're tracking that, if we're looking at that information, we're looking at that data, then we're going to be able to identify if students are making appropriate progress. And I think that's really important, because when we're looking at students who, let's say, for example, again, we'll use reading, they've got a reading difficulty and they're exactly 11 years old when we test them, and they come out with a reading age of 6, and over the course of the next 12 months, they improve that reading age from 6 to 7. They've aged by a year and they've improved their reading age by a year, but actually if you deduct the year from it that it's taken to get there, they haven't improved their reading age. The gap is still the same. Whereas if we've got a child whose reading age was 6 and their actual age was 11, and we're a year later, we're now 12 years old, and their reading age is now 9. Yes, they're still behind. We absolutely recognise that, and we possibly still have a gap to fill. However, they've made 3 years progress in 12 months. So they've made 2 years more progress than would have been expected by age alone. That's really important to take that into account when you're looking at the improvement in reading ages or anything else that you're looking at where you're looking at age-related data. And I think that's an important point to draw out here as well, because I go into a lot of schools. I have that privilege and that honour of seeing schools and seeing what they're doing for interventions and being presented with lots and lots of data. And I see some, really glowing SENCOs thinking, this is amazing, look, they've all made 12 months progress. And I sit there and go, yeah, but it's taken you 12 months to get there. Actually, they haven't necessarily made any progress. Yes, they've not stagnated and they've not gone backwards, but you actually haven't narrowed the gap. We haven't actually improved anything. We haven't made any, quote, progress there. All we've done is mitigate the gap. We've stopped it from getting any wider. So just be really aware of that, and definitely be aware of it if you're using electronic software to track something like that, because I know that a couple of the companies that offer assessment tracking software, especially if it is linked to their personal schemes of work that you have been delivering, they are pretty, I'm going to use the word devious or non-transparent. They kind of don't remind you to deduct the amount of time it has taken the student to make that amount of progress. So it presents as, wow, this is amazing, when actually when you look at it, it's, we've made 1 month progress in 12 months. And that might be correct for some students. That might be absolutely amazing for some students to make 1 month's progress in 12 months over and above their 12 months chronological age. But it isn't brilliant when you consider it. And they're probably presenting it as 13 months progress. Okay, where was I going with that? We can also use it to build evidence. So we all know that the threshold for the HCP application is pretty low. may have special educational need that may require special educational provision to meet that need. That's pretty low. We know that local authorities should not be asking us for loads and loads of data to support things. However, we also know that actually without that data, how can they make a decision? How can they decide whether or not the child has a special educational need and requires special educational provision to meet that need? And the data you have sits behind that. It explains it. It explains, that you've put X number of interventions in place and you're not having an impact. And it's okay to not have an impact, by the way. Negative data is just as good as positive data, and in fact can be far more valuable sometimes. You can use it to demonstrate that you've tried 3 different reading packages and their reading age has stagnated and just isn't moving on. We've got that. And to remember as well that I see a lot of people telling me that, I can't apply for any HCP for that student because they're age related. And I just look at them with, okay, so what are you doing that's above, additional to and different from? We have to put a 1-to-1 in the classroom because they're dysregulated and they can't sit still and they can't be in a lesson for more than 5 minutes and they don't attend half of the week. It's like, okay, so we're putting all of those things in place. They're age-related, fantastic. Where would they be if they attended 100% of the time? Where could they be if they're able to be independent and not rely on the adult? Just being age-related does not negate the fact that a student has needs and may require an EHCP, or whatever they're going to become when the white paper is eventually released. Down at the bottom there, I've got professional collaboration. I think it does allow for discussion. Data does allow us to talk because it's a common piece of information. If I said to you, my son is struggling with reading, what exactly do I mean by that? Do I mean that he's got a lack of fluency? Do I mean he doesn't understand the words? Is he still sounding them out? Is it that he reads like a robot perfectly well, but actually hasn't got a clue what he's just read? What exactly do we mean by struggles with reading? And data very often fills that picture for us. It tells us what it is they're struggling with. Some pieces of data don't know. And then I've put down their statutory requirements. So like I say, it may support your request for additional funding, for an EHC application, for an annual review, or just building that robust, comprehensive evidence that we occasionally need, or regularly need, I should say. I've put here useful data versus excess data or excessive data. Not all data serves the same purpose. So we need to distinguish between those that are essential and useful and those that are an administrative burden. In other words, why on earth are we doing this? Because I haven't got the time for it. So on the left-hand side there, I've got useful data, and I can't squint at my screen closely enough on that one, so I'm going to read it on the big screen over here. We've got attendance trends revealing patterns. We've got assessment outcomes showing progress, behaviour incidents with the context, intervention impact measurements, and pupil-parent voice feedback, even as a graph. So that is useful data. Unuseful data is where you've got multiple versions of identical records. I really don't understand schools that copy the same data into multiple places. Like, if it's already in Sims or Arbor or wherever else, why are we copying it onto something else? Just direct people to where they need to find it. And that might mean writing a protocol or a list of, this is where you can find this information. Yes, that might mean they have to log into multiple systems, but until we've got one system that does everything, stop duplicating your data. We have not got time. Endless compliance checklists, data, we don't need them. They're pointless. Data collected just in case. I remind you, from a GDPR perspective, you're not actually allowed to do that. Unused comparative statistics, it's great collecting them, but if you're not going to use them, what's the point? And then I've put duplicated information across systems, which kind of links to my first one, multiple versions of the same record, but duplicated information as well. I've put at the bottom. So the SENCO risk is spending more time counting than acting. When data collection becomes an end in itself rather than a means to support the pupils, we've actually lost sight of our core purpose. I very vividly remember quite early in my secondary career. So first half of my career was spent in primary, middle schools and FE, and the second half of my career was spent very specifically in secondary. But in the first part of my secondary career, I remember being asked, "Oh, have you analysed the data?" And I said, no, I only joined you 4 weeks ago. Didn't realise I needed to do that for you. And I got told, "Oh, well, you can have these 2 days off timetable." I thought, "Oh, brilliant." I'd got IT to teach that day and I really didn't want to do it. And I got sent across to a building, separate building on our site where I wasn't going to get interrupted, with a lot of printouts and spreadsheets. And I was told to analyse the data. And I think I sat there for the first day. And at the end of the first day, somebody who worked in that building just happened to walk behind me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I've been told to analyse this data. And I have to be honest, I've sat here for a whole day and I still have no idea what I'm actually looking at." And they went, "Oh, well, all they want is basically a Word document that tells them what the data says." Right. Why exactly am I doing this? I'm the SENCO. Why am I analysing the data? Anybody can pull that data out and put it into a Word document. Might need my narrative to explain it, but not to actually extract the data and say, this is what it's saying. So if the attendance is poor in year 7, somebody else should be pulling that out and writing the statement, "Attendance is poor in year 7. I might then be adding the sentence that says, "This is because we have got 9 students with severe medical needs that are hospitalised." That's my role, to add that additional context, not to sit and analyse the data. I have to say, to be fair, we had a new maths teacher join the school a couple of years after that who brought in Formatrix, and Formatrix was great for just chunking that data in and churning out the information we needed. Not that I have a sales pitch from Formatrix at this point, but just bear that in mind if you have got access to it. Anyway, pressure points. So we, as SENCOs, we face lots of pressure from different people at different times to do exactly what I was asked to do, to collect, analyse, to present data. And we do need to understand those demands to make strategic decisions and give strategic responses. I'm not saying that we should never, ever analyse data for ourselves. Sometimes it's necessary. And if you want to understand it, sometimes it's appropriate for you to do it yourself so that you understand where it came from. And just in case somebody is not reading it correctly, which has also happened on occasion. The different people we've got demanding things from us. So I've put local authority there. So whether it's for an EHC, whether it's a funding request, whether it's for an annual review, they're usually wanting some piece of data, whether that's historical data or whether it's current data. They're looking for something to evidence decisions. And again, I'm not going to get into the debate about, or I don't have to provide that to make an EHC needs application. Yep, you're absolutely right. You don't have to provide it. But how are you expecting the local authority to make a decision if you don't provide something? I always think there's a bit of a middle ground between these two things here. So the local authority, I've put demands. It's not really demand, it's request. It's a need for information. I've put their Ofsted requirement. Again, they cannot request data from you in any particular format. However, they will expect you to know your pupil progress. They will expect you to be able to talk about intervention effectiveness. They will expect you to show your impact on SEND outcomes. And all of that involves data. However you want to look at it, it involves using data in some format or other. What they can't do is say to you, I expect it to be on a pink spreadsheet for this one, a purple spreadsheet for that one, and you have to have a pivot table on spreadsheet 6, tab 4, and I expect it to be colour-coded in green and purple. They can't do that, but they can say, talk to me about your leadership impact on SEND outcomes. And you cannot do that unless you know what your SEND outcomes are, and outcomes are data. It's not always numbers, by the way. It could be words, or explanations or context studies. I've put leadership expectations there. I think this is where the biggest crunch point comes from for us, in that it is generally leadership teams who like to see numbers. They like to see pretty graphs. They like to see something that means they know what hymn they're supposed to be singing. So usually they're looking at dashboards, and if they want a nice complicated dashboard, then I think they should be building it themselves and extracting the data from whatever systems you're using, not asking you to input your data into those dashboards. If it's the only place you're being asked to input data, fair enough. However, if you are storing your data in an Excel spreadsheet or a particular program, then they should be accessing that spreadsheet or that program to populate their dashboard, not asking you to do it in two different places. And I'm quite adamant about that. And I have sat as chair of governors and had this argument with a school that I was the chair for, that you're asking a member of staff to input. It was a particular piece of data. They actually wanted it inputted 3 different places, one of which was the dashboard to share with us governors. And I just said, do you know what? I don't want the dashboard. If that's what it involves, I don't want the dashboard. Just give it to me in whatever format it comes. So yeah, we do stick up for you sometimes. Not all the time, but we do try and defend school, teachers and staff within schools and support as much as we can. But that drive from above, that drive from leadership, because they're not privy to what was happening in toe by toe or whatever the intervention is that you've got going on this week. They're not privy to that information. They just want to know, give me the takeaways. What's the key bits I need? And that's where this drive for a dashboard comes from. Where's my information? We've also got parental expectations. Parents, if you can placate them, and I don't mean just nicey nice placate, I mean genuinely placate them, providing them with information, giving them some concrete proof of progress, you generally get less grumbles. Very often the issue that some parents have is that they feel they don't get enough information from us. And just being able to say, hey, look, we've retested their reading gauges and it's improved by 3 months in the last month. Because we wouldn't want to say 3 months in the last 6 months, because of course that means they're now 3 months further behind. So can we say that kind of thing to them? Can we share that information? It can be really, really powerful in informing our parents, giving them that data to work with. However, also be aware that some parents feel that overwhelm of data. If you're using a age-related piece of data and you're showing a parent, child's 12, reading age is 9, are they going to panic more than they're actually going to be satisfied that they've made progress from the 6 it was last time you looked at it? So you've always got to weigh that one up a little bit. But there is that parental expectation. It can take the pressure off. It can support you. And then also I've put in there staff support needs. How can your teachers know what to do to support in a classroom, their adaptive teaching, their quality first teaching? How can they know those things unless they've got the data that sits behind things that explains it? Again, if I just said to my, I'm picking on a department, I'm going to pick on the science department. If I walked up to the science department and said, oh yeah, you got a 7v2 this afternoon, or they've got really low reading gauges, what exactly do I mean? Do I mean that when I write the word photosynthesis on the board, they have got no clue whatsoever because they don't know what the pH makes a f sound? Do I mean that they perhaps need it breaking down, but actually they're okay with new vocabulary? It's just recognising the words. What do I mean when I say that? I get the drive towards class profiles. This class has got a low reading age, or this class struggles with whatever. I absolutely get that, because we're trying to make it as easy as possible for staff to not have to read it for each individual. But at the end of the day, we're teaching individuals. We're not teaching a class. We're teaching individuals within a class. And if one child struggles with comprehension and one child is struggling with their phonics, our adaptive teaching approach is actually very different. There's no point giving the child who's struggling with phonics a list of key vocabulary, because they're still not going to be able to read it. They need the visuals. If we've got the student who actually can understand and read the words but doesn't have the comprehension of the words, then yeah, okay, they would benefit from visuals as well. Everybody benefits from a visual, but they would actually benefit from definitions rather than just the word on the page or just the visual on the page. They need that bit more in depth. They probably need it in a sentence to understand where does this word fit. So we need to know the background to the information. We need to know the data that sits behind things. Got a human impact in here as well. So when the data demands spiral out of control, and I have seen them spiral out of control, that human cost becomes evident across the whole community. I know schools have moved to data drops. I can remember my school moving to 2 data drops a year, and I'm sitting there thinking, but I have to do 3 reviews a year. How can I do 3 reviews when your data drops, A, don't align with my reviews, and B, you only do it twice a year? So at least one of my meetings, I'm not going to have any data to show. That then meant I'm going out to teaching staff saying, can I have an update on this child? And can you tell me where they are? And they're like, I'm not giving you another piece of data because I've just done my data drop for February and I know it's April now and I don't have to do another one until July. I really feel like tearing my hair out. So this is why we need to be on senior leadership teams. So 3 data drops a year makes far more sense to me because it sits with those 3 reviews a year that SENCOs have to do if they're on our SEN register. We really want to support everybody. I absolutely get that staff time burden. You know, at the end of the day, I've always been a teacher as well as being the SENCO. So we do need time to do things. And the more that we're generating data and inputting data, it takes away from our time with students. But we still do need it. So there's a balance there. SENCO isolation I've put there, you know, rather than sitting behind our desk wrestling with the spreadsheet or just screaming at the screen, we should be out there supporting our staff, supporting the lessons, supporting the students, supporting our colleagues, building relationships. And we can't do that if we're sat there trying to analyse data, which is why I say we shouldn't really be doing it. We paint the SENCO picture, the SEN picture, but we shouldn't actually be doing the analysis. And then that pupil depersonalisation can also be an issue. So where a child is reduced to a number. I usually quote the Michael Rosen poem at this point, which I won't do today because I've said it so many times before, but if anybody wants it, I'm more than happy to share it. But it's where children are basically reduced to a number on a screen. Freddie has his UPN number, his unique pupil number that's allocated to him when he starts school, and it follows him all the way through. He's got his exams number that is allocated when he's 14, and that follows him through. And he's then got these other bits of data, which are generally numbers, that are also following him through as well, rather than seeing Freddie for who Freddie is. And that does worry me sometimes, but I say it is useful. I've also got on there data rich, understanding poor. So schools can become overwhelmed with the information and lack that genuine insight on how to improve outcomes. So a number without a narrative can only tell half the story. And that's, you know, it goes back to what I keep trying to say. Get somebody else to crunch the data, get somebody else to tell you what the data is saying, but you give the story, the explanation that explains the data. Think of it like the difference in science between an evaluation and a conclusion. You're giving that conclusion to things, you're explaining it. Where data drives things well, so it becomes our ally, it becomes our friend when it genuinely informs what's going on. So we could use it for our APDR cycles, assess, plan, do, review. We can use it for intervention. We can use it to drive improvement. So here we're talking about clear baselines. What's our starting point? Where are we heading from? So I go into schools, I do health checks, reviews, audits, whatever you want to call them, mini SEN inspections, and quite a lot of schools use it for the purpose of setting a baseline. This is where we are, and this is what we're aiming for, and this is a gap we've got to fill to get there. And some of those will be quick wins, and some of them take slightly longer. You know, it doesn't always have to be about student data. We could be looking at ourselves in this picture. I've put meaningful review points, so not collecting a piece of data and then leaving it till the end of year and then collecting it again, because actually that's not really going to tell us very much, apart from the fact a year has gone by and things were going wrong in week 6 and we've ignored it for the other 33 weeks. That's all that leaving it for a year actually does for you. I usually share the story. I went into a school many, many years ago now, and they were using a particular piece of software. They assess every child in July for their reading and spelling age. They identify a group of students, and in the autumn term, they put those students onto this piece of software. So they had their names over the summer, put them onto this software, and the student has 10 minutes twice a week to log into this software to address their reading and their spelling. And then at the end of the year, they do their reading and spelling test again. Nobody was actually checking what is their progress through this program. Some of them were still in the first couple of lessons. What is the impact of that program on their reading and spelling? And going by the fact that some of them are about to go into it for the 4th time round, so they've done it in year 3, 4, 5, and now they're about to do it in year 6, it probably wasn't having the desired impact, or they were genuinely far behind and it was having an impact, but we couldn't measure it because nobody was looking at the data. So making sure we're taking a regular measure of things, but not too often, because we don't want to be data drowned. Adaptive teaching practice, so getting that insight, it allows us to adapt our practice, it allows us to change things. And that again goes back to that intervention. If we'd have checked it after 6 weeks, what's happening with their reading age, how far have we got through the program, has their attendance improved, how are they doing in lessons in relation to whatever it is we're addressing, we start to get a bit of a bigger picture. And then I've called it a strengthened pupil story. We've got information there that is telling us about the child, other than Fred struggles with spelling. We've got, actually, he struggles with these particular aspects of spelling, and these are the ones we need to focus on, rather than just a generic, he's struggling with it. Data drenching, some warning signs there. System duplication, so duplicating things across systems. Unused analysis. It always makes me chuckle when somebody puts up the information about SEM, and somebody will jump on it with, where can I find this data? I need to find this data for my school. And I sit there looking at it thinking, yep, some of you will genuinely be asking because you need to find that data for your school, and others of you are asking and you'll pull that data off and there's thousands of rows on that spreadsheet and you won't do anything with it. Or you'll sit and analyse it but not actually do anything with your analysis. That's a waste of your time. There's no point doing it, to be honest. And the key one for that is usually the SEN data that comes out in July, end of June, beginning of July, where you're looking at your baseline statistics. How many children have got any HCP? How many are on SEN support? How many are cognition and learning? How many of them are on there for SPLDs? How many are on there under autism, for example, or not ADHD, because ADHD isn't a category on the census, SEMH. So look, it's those trends and data. And yeah, I get it. We're trying to look at how does our school fit against those trends in data, but there are so many people who download that piece of information and then do nothing with it. You're just cluttering up your computer system. So if you're going to pull something down, make sure you're going to use it. Make sure you use that analysis. Plug it into a nutshell, put it into something, use it, put it into your governor's report, put it into your SEN information report at the end of the year, but don't just pull it down because you've seen somebody else is doing it. Do it because it has a purpose for you. I've got compliance only reports. So these are documents that you generate solely to satisfy an external requirement rather than actually giving you clarity and insight for internal improvement. They drive me nuts. And I always say when I'm doing my SEN reviews and my health checks, whatever you want to call them yourselves, please do not generate me something because I am coming in. If you don't have it, you don't have it. Just talk to me about it. I really don't care how you present it to me. Present it on the back of a napkin. Put it on the whiteboard in the room. Handwrite it. Give me the spreadsheet. Show me what you've got on your computer. Show me what you scribbled in the back of your diary this morning on your way into work because you suddenly realised I was going to ask you a question about something. You thought, oh, I better tell her about that. That is data. It is still information. We don't need things always presented in a specific way. That links back to that unused analysis. I'm saying put it in a nutshell, but if you're never going to use a nutshell, then don't put it in a nutshell because you're just creating it for the sake of creating it. If you're going to put it in a nutshell and then share that nutshell with your staff or share it with your governors, great, because we've killed two birds with the proverbial one stone. Or in this case, we've killed it with some data. And then staff frustration, teaching colleagues, that data fatigue. Usually when you're asking them to fill something in and they roll their eyes at you because, if you're the music teacher, every single time you send out that request for information about a student where you've got to fill in the Connors questionnaire and you want the ADHD information, that music teacher has to do it for every single student. You're thinking that your workload's high and that you're having to do it for every single student, but if you're sending it to the English department, they only have one English teacher, maybe two. And those English teachers, you maybe have 6 or 7 in the department. So they don't do the whole school. They won't have to address every student in the school. Science department, maths department, I'm thinking secondary here specifically. But even if you were doing it in a primary school, that child is generally only in one class. We're only sending it to that year 4 teacher. And that year 4 class has only got 2 children in there that we're referring, whereas the other students come from year 3, they come from reception, they come from year 6. That one teacher is not having to do all of it. Some teachers, back to the PE teacher again, sorry, PE, back to the music teacher again, sometimes the drama teacher perhaps, they probably have to do it for every single child in the school. And I really do feel for them when we're sending it out and asking them to fill in that information again or for another student, because it could be that you're sending out 8 of those a week and you're thinking it's a lot of work for you, but actually it's a lot of work for them as well. So absolutely understand it when staff do roll their eyes at me. But also, what else are they being asked for? And majority of you have a teaching load alongside being the SENCO as well. You know what you're being asked for in school. So are you being asked to fill in your mark sheets? Are you being asked to fill in a data drop? Have you just been asked to collect, shoe sizes of every student because your school's decided to buy every student a pair of plimsolls? Whatever it is, you're constantly being asked to do things. So just being aware of it when we're asking staff, are they drowning in data as well? If your staff groan when you mention data collection, it is time to reassess your approach and eliminate any unnecessary bureaucracy. And I have said unnecessary there because we do need information, but can we make it as easy as possible? I've also put there quality over quantity, less is more, which is ironic considering the fact I'm talking about data, and data is usually numbers, and I'm actually talking about the quality instead, which is not always numbers. So this means asking a critical question. So my question here is, what specific decision will this data inform? And if it's not going to inform something, why the hell am I collecting it? And if you can't give yourself a clear answer, is it justified, or have you just got into the habit of collecting it? Again, give you an example. We used to collect reading ages using a piece of software, but the English department also used to do a paper-based NGRT test, the old-fashioned NGRT test, and sit and mark it by hand as well. It was like, okay, we have the online version and you're doing a paper version, and why? Why are we duplicating the information, and which one of us needs to stop? Because generally speaking, those reading ages are not going to be vastly out from each other. Yes, some students do better on paper than they do on the computer screen because they can't have the monkey's guess on a piece of paper. But we're both collecting the same thing. There is no point to it. Who needs to rescind that? And usually it's going to be the paper version because somebody has to manually sit and mark those. Collect purposefully. So always think GDPR, but we're not thinking of it in the data protection sense here. If you think about the GDPR principles, it's what's the minimum amount of data that you need to collect and retain on somebody for effective service. So do I need 5 reading ages, or is 1 sufficient? Do I actually need a spelling age, or can I pull that from something else? Do we need all of this data, or can we just collate data? Can we share it from elsewhere? So only gather what you need for immediate decisions, not everything. And make sure it's reliable data that you're collecting, and it's accurate, and that it's genuinely usable and accessible by whoever it is that needs it. And then I've got triangulate evidence there. So put that quantitative data, whatever it is, with pupil voice feedback or with professional judgment. And that gives you a much more comprehensive picture of your student, of that data that's coming out at you. That's actually really important. Put here practical SENCO strategies. So 4 things to think about. Your 1-page profiles, whatever you want to call them, profile, passport, post-it note, piece of paper. Make it a living document. Make it something that captures the essential information at a glance. I think of it as a nutshell for a student. So you've got your pupil voice, you've got your key strategies, you've got your current priorities, and you've got your data on there that staff need. So what are their access arrangements? What is their current reading age, if that is relevant and useful to you? What needs to go on there that makes it useful? And update the damn thing. Don't my biggest bugbears, passports that are written at the beginning of the year and never ever updated. And I've seen them where they've been written in year 7, not been updated, and the kids now in year 11 and about to leave. Please update that information, because they don't still have the same reading age in year 11 that they had in year 7. And if they do, give your head a wobble, because something's definitely gone wrong. QIT cycles, or QFT cycles, so quality first teaching, quality intervention teaching. So QIT, quality intervention, put those cycles in. Can we monitor the interventions that are going on in the same manner that we would monitor English or maths or science? How are we collecting the data for that? Have we got some time limited objectives to the interventions we have in place? The EEF talks about we shouldn't really run an intervention for more than 2 terms, 26 weeks. Because children need time to consolidate the information, but also need the chance to independently apply that information in their lessons. Observation training, so train our staff to recognise and record meaningful observation, because that is really useful data. So whether it's a time analysis, what was the child doing 10 minutes into lesson, 15 minutes into lesson, 20 minutes into lesson, whether it's looking at the number of times they put their hand up, how many times they were off task. It can be really, really helpful, and it's data, but actually the analysis of that data is just as powerful as the data itself. So they don't have to do a tick sheet every 30 seconds. I have seen those too. I call that superficial compliance data. What was the child doing? 30 seconds, 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. 3 minutes, and you're watching this child who's obviously clocked onto you, and they're staring at the teacher, always having a nice little daydream of their own. So you're ticking the same box all the way across that says staring at teacher, paying attention to lesson, because you haven't got a clue what's going on in their head, to be honest. That's just compliance data. There's no point to it. You'd be better off, whenever they change what they are doing, quickly jot down the time. 2 minutes 30, looked away from the teacher. 3 minutes, looked back at the teacher. Whatever. And then system audits. So look at your data collection processes. What is serving your pupils? What doesn't add value? Combining duplicated efforts. So sit there, look at that data. If I've got it on Sims, do I really need it on Insight? If I've got it on Insight, do I really need it on an Excel spreadsheet? If I've got it in all 3 places, I'm paying my admin far too much. Present your data effectively. So I've spoken a few times now. Governors and leadership, they need it, but they need the analysis, but they need the story behind the analysis. Parents and families, they would value it, but just make sure it's digestible. And then teaching staff. And if you're going to give it teaching staff, what are you expecting them to do with it? Don't just give them a list of reading ages. What exactly do you want them to do with those reading ages? Put a couple of tips down there. So use charts and traffic lights sparingly. I don't like visuals personally. The narrative is far more useful. Ensure visuals enhance rather than complicate. I've seen some amazing graphs, but I haven't been able to make head and tail of what they're actually telling me. Choose colours that support understanding. I've actually got into the habit now of, even when I'm doing slides and I'm talking about something, if it's a positive point, I've started colouring the background of it green in the box. And if it's a negative point, I've started colouring it red. Just because everybody knows it. It's like, oh, yeah, red's negative, green's positive. Okay, fine. And we just move from there. So choose your colours really carefully, not just because they fit the school colour scheme, Birmingham blue, or whatever it is you're using. And then use some jargon-free explanations, especially if we're sharing with parents and families. And then always link to an action. So if you've just got numbers without a narrative, you're not going to have very much impact with that. Our balancing act is to advocate strategically for the collection of enough data without it being excessive or duplicated, to push back professionally, so confidently challenge unnecessary adaptations unnecessary duplication and administrative burden, model excellence, so set ourselves out to do what we want everybody else to do, and then maintain perspective, so keeping those fundamentals there. Data does serve us, but it actually it serves the pupils and the professionals, not the pupils and the professionals serve the data. That's really key. Blue ones, by the way, this is pretty neutral. It's just telling you something. So you're the professional expert in SEND. Trust your judgment about what data truly matters for the pupils in your care. Just a reflection prompt there to get you thinking if you're going to take this away and do something with it. If you stopped collecting one set of data tomorrow, what difference would it make? And if you can't identify what difference it would make, then just stop collecting it. There you go, I've just saved you the weekend or something somewhere. So really do think about, what difference does this make if I stop collecting it? Who is it going to impact if I don't collect this piece of data? I remember, again, an example. I used to collect attendance data and behaviour data on a weekly basis for a safeguarding meeting that we used to have. So we had our safeguarding meeting on a Thursday night every week from 4 till 6. And we would discuss certain students. And one of my jobs was to pull off all of the attendance and the behaviour data for those students. Do not get me wrong, there is a purpose for attendance and behaviour data for students. Did I really need to pull it off a system and input it into a spreadsheet on a weekly basis? The answer is no, because 9 times out of 10, we wouldn't even have been referring to it for particular students. It wasn't relevant for them. I only really needed to pull it for those students where it was relevant or where we needed to track something a little bit more closely. And even then, weekly was probably far too frequently. Monthly might have been more appropriately, half-termly, maybe 3 weekly if I want to be gathering a bit more of them. But weekly was absolutely pointless and an utter waste of probably about 4 hours of my week every week, pulling all of that data to sit and do it. The art of balance SENCOs. We like to balance things in the SENCO role. We're really good at it. We juggle. I can't get my arms. There you go. My arms are about level there. It feels like they're lopsided. It's not me that's lopsided. It's the camera that's lopsided. Anyway, the art of balance there. Are we data driven or are we data drenched? So have we got that evidence that empowers us, that lets us make the right decisions, that helps us target the interventions, that lets us build any compelling cases that we actually need there? Or are we data drenched? Are we drowning in data so much that we can't actually see the numbers because there's just so much there? Or maybe you are data, got my words again. You're in a data drought and you don't have this. Is something completely missing for you? And you actually need to be a bit more data driven and you wish you were data drenched. It's important. The art lies in knowing the difference, though, and not going all out and pulling every single possible bit of data you could have, like magpieing. There's no point in doing that if you're not going to do something with it. So hopefully that's given you an idea around data drenched, data driven, data droughts. This month is October, and let's have a look what we're up to. We are working on cognition, learning, and data as our theme within the SENCO diet. So please do check that out. If you are a member, you can access that. It went live this morning. If you're not a member, the August menu is there for you to go and have a look at to get a taster of what we're talking about here. But this particular menu, like I say, it's got two themes to it. It's got cognition and learning, and it has got data running through there as well. And I will have a recording going up, because if you look at our list on the right hand side there, you will notice I haven't got any more webinars to deliver this month, apart from the Halloween special, which is slightly different, because I'm not here on Wednesdays and Thursdays. It's already confused me that I'm doing this on a Wednesday. We're a bit busy this month. It's a bit of a chaotic one. So tomorrow, if you're a secondary school, we have got Nick Late from JCQ joining us. He's got his presentation, but he has also got some time to do Q&A with us. We've got our legal conference next Thursday, which is down in London at KX. Unfortunately, tickets have now sold out for that, so if you missed out on that one, I'm very, very sorry. You'll have to nag us to see if we can get another one sorted out for you. And we have got a SENCO meetup in London on that same day from, I think it's 6 till 8 p.m. I won't say where, because you have to sign up for that. Doesn't matter if you're not coming to the conference, you can still come to the SENCO meetup if you would like to. All I will say is it is very near to King's Cross, St Pancras Station. So if you are around that area or can get to that area relatively easily, you are welcome to come and join us. I am at the TES show on the 10th of October. I'm not speaking, but I am on the TTS stand between 12 and 1. I'm going to go and see the Ofsted talk at 11 o'clock, and then I'm going to pop onto the TTS stand, and you can see me talking about some of the products that I reviewed for them recently, and they have got those on the stand along with a guide that I have written. We've got two further SENCO meetups. They are in Leeds on the 14th of October and in Grimsby on the 16th of October. They are both following events that we are at. So in Leeds, we are at an event for Crick Software, and in Grimsby, we're at the North East Lincolnshire SENCO Conference, which is also about Ofsted, oddly enough. 22nd of October, we have got Angharad Welch. She is delivering a session for us on alternative augmented communication. I can never say that word. I can say them individually, but I can't say them when you put them together. So she's talking about AAC. We have got a SENCO meetup in Warwick on the 23rd of October. No event that day that you can come and join us at. We're actually going to go and visit somebody, and we thought we'd do a session in Warwick. And then we've got the Halloween special, which is another one of our menus. So it's a bit like our August one. So it's 12 dishes or so. And it's Halloween because it's very scary. It's all about Ofsted. And in this particular one is called Tricks, Treats and Ticking Boxes. It's on the 30th of October because I don't really want to do it on the 31st. So please do come along and join us for that. But I will put out a recorded webinar for those of you who are Sensible SENCO members to supplement your diet, which is another one about data, but it is data linked to cognition and learning. So very, very specifically within there, tying our two topics together. And if you want to know what's coming next month, well, next month is November, and it is all about enhancing communication and interaction. Can't see questions. I will stop sharing my screen because then that might actually Nope, hold on. There we go. You have to do that. There we go. No, I can't because I can't get rid of that screen. Oh, I can. I can get rid of that screen. Did I? Oh, I can see questions. Nope, no questions there. Brilliant. Check time on that. Brilliant. Yeah, I've got a couple of seconds. So if anybody does have any questions, please do shout out in the chat. I was going to say something and I've now completely forgotten what it was. Yep, love it when that happens. Probably not. Okay, no, I won't say it then. I will let everybody escape for the evening. Enjoy yourselves. Have fun. I'm going to go and get my feet warm because they're absolutely frozen. I like ice blocks. Or a cup of tea. A cup of tea would work, actually. Definitely need a cup of tea. Oh, and if anybody didn't notice, we have managed to get into the finals of the Education Today Awards, which is on the 5th of December. So thank you for voting for us, because you managed to get us from the shortlist of 24 businesses, I believe it was, in one of the categories, down to a short list of 8 that have made it into the finals. So thank you very much for that. Definitely looking forward to, hopefully, fingers crossed, winning again. So we won last year, so we could do winning again this year. Anyway, let you all escape. Take care, have fun, and I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye. Now I can't find the button again.